Okay, so welcome along to another episode of Are We Convinced? A brand new guest on this episode is Robin Elliott. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast.
Well, thank you for joining us in our piano room this morning. And I have to say, I'm slightly nervous about this because I'm used to asking the questions on the TV and radio shows, but I'm never really interviewed. And when I am interviewed, sometimes weird things happen and things come out that I didn't even know was going to happen during the interview. So over the next, how long we're doing this for, anything could happen because I'm not in control. It's a control thing. And you'll know from hosting radio shows as well, when we're in the studio, we love to control the desk. We have to have full control over everything that we do. And the same thing in the TV studio. When I'm sitting on the right-hand seat that I always sit in, that's a control seat. And that controls everybody. That controls the guest. And I want to sit there. I want to swap. I want to swap and sit there because I'm not comfortable sitting here.
Well, on this podcast, we talk about things that you either are or aren't convinced about. So this can go any way. You know, it can go down things in life that you've been convinced about or anything like that. But before we do that, let's do a wee bit of a background.
Okay.
On you, right? Okay. So, I mean, how long have you been sitting in that seat? We control the control seat. How long have you been?
This year, in the business, as I try to count up roughly in my head, I am 28 years in the business. The TV show this year is 20 years old. Which means I've been working for Northern Visions for 21 years as well, which is scary. But yeah, 28 years doing television, radio, and all the rest of the crap that I do as well in between.
Making that step onto TV, was that a step that was natural for you?
It was natural for me because TV actually came first.
Okay.
I was around TV studios from the age of 16. And I was around all the big Friday night TV shows like Anderson in the Box and all. So at the age of 16, I mean, I was with Boyzone on their first ever TV appearance in 1994 in Belfast. So I got to meet all those big stars. I got to see how live TV worked on a Friday night. And then ended up working on shows like Saints and Scholars and the John Daly Show and all those classic BBC shows. And the Kelly Show as well, which again is weird because now we've brought Jerry back and he's now on NVTV and on Sky with me as well. So it's kind of come full circle as well. But I was lucky enough to be, when I first started in television, to be working with all those legends back then. The first ever gig I had on television actually was School Around the Corner.
Wow.
With Frank. And that is the worst TV show to record because you're doing 3 shows a day with 3 separate schools in each one, and they say never work with children and animals. I agree.
Is that true? Yeah.
Never work with children. And I'm not joking you, but every show, when they used to get up to sing the little choir piece, you would start to see a puddle forming on the floor, and some kid would pee themselves during the choir, and it would just trickle down towards the audience every single show.
And I suppose there is no control in that situation. You just have to go with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where does that lead on from? So obviously, I mean, you're probably well known for radio stints. Probably a lot of people have recognized your voice there. Where did that all come from? A lot of people say as a kid they were sitting at home and they were pretending to be that person.
I only thought about this recently, right? Because as a kid, I wanted to be an actor. And I did lots of youth theatre and lots of plays and stuff as a child. I went to drama college and all the rest of it. And I thought, where did the radio thing come from? And it actually did go right back. I didn't realise this until recently. My dad had a massive record collection with everything from the Rolling Stones to Bruce Springsteen to the Eagles to the Who, Bowie's pin-up albums, which to this day still scares me, the front cover of that album. And what I would do as a child, I would play all his records. And then what I used to do was I used to tape them and put them onto tapes because we did a lot of traveling. So I'd do these mix tapes for the car. So that was the start of me putting together a radio show back then, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. Then you all know the first record I ever bought was Bonnie Tyler's Holding Out for a Hero. I bought that with my own money at the age of 5. That's how obsessed I was with records.
And there's not many 5-year-olds who's going to say that are buying records of that. Yeah.
I was obsessed with records and music back then. And then I found an old tape, or my mother found an old tape, where I then started putting voiceovers to the songs as well. So that was me hosting my own radio programs being made in a stereo in the house at the age of 7 or 8 or whatever. So that's really where it all started.
And it's crazy that it's just, that's impulse. That's, you didn't think about it. It's what you were doing.
And then, like many kids of the 80s as well, we used to record the chart show on a Sunday afternoon with, I think it was Bruno Brooks or somebody back in the day, to get the songs and stuff as well, to get the new stuff. I used to do all that. But I never listened to radio as a kid.
Right, okay.
I was aware, I listened to the chart show, and I remember meeting Gary Davis at a Radio 1 roadshow in Helensburgh in Scotland. But I never listened to radio until much later on.
Yeah. And what was it like for you then stepping into the studio for the first time? You've done it all, you've recorded all your wee things at home, but stepping in and doing your first show on radio?
Yeah, things just kind of happened to me. There was never any plan that I'm going to go and be a radio presenter. I'm going to go and be a TV presenter. I was lucky to have a fabulous mentor at a very young age, the late great Jerry Anderson, my friend, my hero, my mentor, everything. And listening to Jerry actually was the first time I actually listened to radio and concentrated on what was going on. And Jerry's crazy ways and stuff on the radio, I thought, hey, this is good.
Yeah.
I want to do that. And then things just happened. I find myself in a radio studio. The next thing I'm being asked to do demos. I'm being asked to do... And at the time, I thought I was the youngest radio presenter in Northern Ireland. Now, I'm close to it. Stuart beat me by a few months. Stuart Robinson is the youngest, but I was the second youngest presenter in the country at the time. I was on the air from the age of 16.
I suppose when you think back,
I grew up in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see the crazy stuff that hits the press from time to time, and especially way back then, of course it was going to happen because I grew up in front of an audience. That's why.
Yeah. And speaking of Jerry, and do you almost feel, I don't know if feel sorry is the right phrase, but feel sorry for people in this generation that they won't. There's no one out there like that anymore. They won't experience that kind of radio.
Those days have gone. All you got to do to survive on radio now is find an interesting way to say that was Dua Lipa. And they've been announced for Glastonbury, so now you'll say headlining Glastonbury is Dua Lipa.
Yeah.
That's not radio. And it's changed so much, and you're controlled by playlists. And if you remember the glory days when I was on doing the evening show, it was all about the listeners out there. And we had so much fun talking to people on the phone, and especially people in Belfast. They're crazy, but they give you radio gold, and they did. Why would you stop putting those people on the air? Because that's what people want. They want entertainment. We're not here to play music. If you want to listen to non-stop music, put on a Spotify playlist. We're there as entertainers, and that's what's been forgotten about is entertainers. I was lucky as well. When you think about it, I did a breakfast show with Mark Lima, who is the best radio breakfast show host in the world, and was an absolute dream to work with. I got to work with Joe Ferguson. I got to work on Joe's Late Night Chat Show, which was extremely controversial, and we all know what happened there. But I got to work with a master. And I don't care what people say about Joe and all the rest of it, but Joe's still one of my radio heroes. And nobody has had the figures that he had on that Cool FM morning show, or the figures that he had when he went to Radio City and he's on the back of buses and he's pulling in 1.5 million. The radio geniuses. I got to do a Sunday thing with Paul Orr. We did this mad quiz called Dead or Alive, which was the funniest radio. But these people had to phone in and guess whether these people were dead or alive. And I wish the tape still existed, because there's minutes of me and Paul not being able to speak on air. We're just laughing so much. That's entertainment.
Does it scare you that it's went away so fast? It wasn't even just a gradual change. It was just
1 minute it was there, the next minute it was gone. 1 minute City Beat was the biggest thing in Northern Ireland radio, and the next minute somebody came in and fucked the whole thing up, and that was the end of it.
What's your view on influencers? And because a lot of people would say that unless you have 10,000 followers on Instagram,
That's all bollocks. There's people out there. I had this recently, and I haven't talked about this, but I was up for a gig recently, and they told me I wasn't getting it because I wasn't relevant anymore. Right. Because I don't have 65,000 followers. I could have 65,000 followers. I can go and pay 400 quid or something and have 65,000 followers. Which a lot of people are doing. And when you look at their figures and you look at how much traction their posts are getting, for 65,000, it doesn't work. You're getting no traction. So it's fake. It's fake. The people that are on my social media are the people who've been there for the last 20 years, have listened to me on the radio for day one, and they're the people that matter. They're the people who I'm influencing. I was influencing before influencers were influencers. I was the first person in Northern Ireland to have a podcast. Did you know that?
No.
When I used to do the Big Brother stuff in the morning, which again happened by accident. There was a woman used to phone me, the first series of Big Brother. A woman used to phone me up on the radio every night, obsessed with it. I put her on the air and we talked about Big Brother. And the next thing I went, there's something to this. People are genuinely interested in this show. So I went to the bosses and I says, why don't you let me come on the breakfast show and we'll do the Big Brother news every day? And we did it. And it became massive. And then what would happen is after the show, I think it was Andy Pugh at the time, Andy would take my bits and pieces and cut them into a podcast and put them on the website. So I had the first ever podcast. I got a column in the Sun out of it. I'm a trained journalist as well. And when you used to go out to these events and things, it was the legends of television, the legend of radio, the legends of newspapers there. There were people who actually meant something. And we all used to meet up and have a chat and all the rest of it. Influencers don't talk to you. Nobody talks to you anymore. They come in and they're so focused about waving their phone around that they don't actually know what's going on around them or what's, and the other thing that really annoys me, that really actually upsets me and really wants to grab these people and shake them is the lapel mics, right? Yeah. You're going out to interview somebody. You're trying to be a reporter. You're trying to convince these people that, yes, you're a real presenters, you're real journalists, but you're walking around this tiny little lapel mic, shoving it in somebody's face. It's a lapel microphone to put on your lapel, not to use as an interview mic. What are you thinking of? This upsets me.
The amount of noise that when they're moving it about in their hands and their fingers. I get what you mean. I totally get it. Yeah.
I have an interview mic that cost me under 100 quid. Just go and buy a mic.
Yeah. Or this new trend where people are standing outside City Hall and they'll just go up to people and they'll...
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
What is going on?
Yeah, but you mentioned Big Brother, right? So are you convinced by Big Brother returning this year?
I would love it if I knew the people who are in it. Yes, I do know one of them is a friend of mine who is, and Louis in it. And Sharon, of course, was in it. But who are these people?
I know.
What happened to the days when you had George Galloway and Rula Lenska pretending to be cats and things? And, you had proper celebrities who had proper meltdowns in the house as well. I mean, you had Julie Goodyear one time in there. You had there's Hollywood people have been in the Big Brother house. So.
And they knew what to do to make TV or to make TV.
Exactly, yes.
I think in there at the minute, it's just... They're just sailing on and there's nothing.
The only one who's playing the game in there and they knew he would do it is Louis.
I was just about to say.
Because he's not holding back. He's been honest about Jedward, he's been honest about Ronan Keating, he's been honest about others. Good on you, Louis, for doing that.
Yeah.
You've been there. Again, you're a legend, you're the biggest thing in Irish music. You're allowed to say what really happens out there,
He seems very relaxed in the house as well. Yeah. I thought he would have been quite...
I thought I didn't think he was going to cope, but no, he is. And the thing about Louis, when you hear him talking to other people, he is genuinely interested in other people's stories as well. He's genuinely interested in people. I'm not convinced about Big Brother as a show itself now either. Again, it's not what it was. We don't have the Nicky Graham who I miss like crazy and Pete Bennett and people like that.
Bringing back just reality TV in general, I just don't think, because people are so easily offended, and we'll get onto this topic about kind of cancel culture and so on. It's so hard to do things like that now, I think.
It is.
Reality TV, because someone will always find a way to get offended.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you find that when you look back on your journey up to now, could you imagine starting, say, in radio or starting in TV and trying to play that card?
The one thing that I can't imagine, it was something I was very famous for, was when we used to do the talent shows. And me and Stuart and Mickey Modell and people like that would be touring shopping centres and putting thousands of people. I mean, there was times we were closing the doors of shopping centres for health and safety. Yeah. We'd pulled in such a big crowd to those things. And I mean, it was as big as the X Factor. Here in Northern Ireland, it was as big as the X Factor. And of course, I played the nasty judge. It was all an act. Yep. You know, I knew exactly what I was doing, but not in a million years could you do that today.
Yep. I know.
I mean, you would end up in court. You would end up in prison. Some of the things that I got away with saying, you know, I remember having to get escorted out of shopping centres. People believed that I really meant the stuff that I was saying.
Yeah.
But you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You'd be up for child abuse.
Yeah. Have you ever had anyone, like, have you ever had confrontation from someone who, you know, maybe you've said something to them, or maybe...
I still get it to this day. I still meet kids who come up to me in the street and said, "You were horrible to me in the Kennedy Center.
Yep.
You shattered my illusions of, you know, whatever." And they still.
Yeah.
It happened to me on the TV show recently, or about a year ago. The guy with the beard who plays the Belfast Girls or something.
Yes.
You call him.
Yes.
I didn't actually know that I had met him
right.
in another life. So he sits down in the studio before me, and the cameras start rolling, and I'm doing the intro, coming up next to talking about blah, blah, and he says, "Can I just stop you?" And the cameras are rolling and something. He says, "Can I just clear something up right away? But we've actually met before." I said, "Have we?" He says, "Yes, you judged me in the Kennedy Center in the City Beat Young Star Search." And I went, "Oh God, I know what's coming here."
Yeah.
And I said, "Was I nice to you?" No. But he felt that he had to get that out of the way.
Off his chest?
Yes, off his chest,
Yeah. Who's been your most... obviously, I mean, we'll go on to talk about kind of your TV. And it's been... How many years do you say now? It's been...
20 years. That chat show's been 20 years.
Yeah. Who's been your... Can you pick a favourite person who's been in that room? Or is it impossible, I suppose, if you're interviewing so many people?
I forget.
Yeah.
Because there have been that many. It's like when Shane MacGowan died. I was telling people I've never met Shane MacGowan. I have. I did St. Patrick's Day at the City Hall with Shane MacGowan in 2004 when he was totally off his head. And we have this great footage of him staggering out of a taxi with a joint in his mouth and staggering up the steps. And he walks on stage and he pours a bottle of wine over the monitors, and the monitors are exploding all over the place. And there's a group of about 200 kids down the front row, and he takes a microphone, he looks down at the kids, this is St. Patrick's Day, and he says, "Merry fucking Christmas, Belfast." to them.
And do you still get nervous? Say, you know, you look up to someone and they're coming on the show, or you're speaking to them. Do you get nervous at that point? Do you...
I get excited. Yeah, it's something that I've always wanted. And... because of the ages of so many people now, I have a bucket list, and there's people that I need to talk to. I need to have them on. I need to have Joan Collins on the show. She's 90, for God's sake. I need to have her on. I need to have William Shatner on the show. He's 90. But people like that would, I suppose, probably a little bit of nerves. I need to have Dolly on the show. I turned Dolly down.
That's Dolly down?
My biggest regret.
Right.
I was offered to interview Dolly at the Point in Dublin. And it just happened, it was on the same night as I was hosting the big Buzz Awards in the Waterfront Hall. It was the second or third year of the Buzz Awards. So I had to turn Dolly down to appear with Darius.
Yeah. I
love Darius, and I miss him terribly.
Yeah.
But I turned Dolly down. That's my biggest regret. That I didn't. And so I need to have Dolly on the show now.
Yeah. There's still time.
There's still time, exactly. Yeah.
In fact, she was reading stories on Jack and Norrie or something last time I seen. Yeah,
exactly.
She's doing absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So another thing another question: are you convinced with? So what is the thing that you're convinced about that you've learned through life? Is there something that you've learned that? And I don't want to ask the cliche question like, you know, yourself 20, 30 years ago, but is there something that you're convinced that everyone should live by?
Yes. And Philomena Begley, the Queen of Country, tells every up-and-coming singer this, every up-and-coming person that she meets, and it's the best piece of advice. And she always says to them, be nice to the people on the way up, because you're going to meet them and you're going to need them on the way back down again. And I like to think that I've been nice to everybody in the business, and that's why I'm still around 28 years later.
Yeah.
Because I am nice.
And because there are people, as you say, who will, and we've kind of touched on it, will climb the ladder, will get the ego, and, you know, bridges are burnt during the journey.
Yeah. There have been times I've done things that I regret. There have been times I've done crazy stuff. You all know, you've read it in the papers. We've been in the front of the newspapers and stuff like that. But you know, well, it's all part of the journey as well. Mm-hmm. And somebody actually, I was out at a thing last night, and somebody actually asked me about the drinking. And did I regret the rock and roll hellraiser? Did I regret going on the drink with George Best? Did I regret going partying with Amy Winehouse? Did I regret doing all of those things? No, of course I don't. I had a great time doing it, and I don't regret anything. Yes, there came a time when things got out of control and you realise, hang on, I have a little issue here that I need to sort out. Mm-hmm. But no, I don't regret it. Yeah, I regret towards the end when things did get out of hand, and I did upset some of my good friends at the time. But during the real rock and roll days, you know, no, I don't regret it. No.
What is it like from your perspective when you see a paper and you're there? You know,
if it's something that I've done, and I knew that I've done something, and again, it comes back to growing up in front of the nation. If you put yourself out there, you have to accept everything. Mm-hmm. So if it's something I've genuinely done, yes, I don't mind going out there. The bit that always upset me was when random stories hit the front of newspapers and there was absolutely no truth in them whatsoever. Yeah. And that's upsetting. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have the money to go and sue, and I didn't have, you know, it's fine when you have done the things, but when you haven't, it's hurtful. Yeah. And it's hurtful to your family, and it's hurtful to everybody around you as well. Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, people on the outside, you almost think that it couldn't be a thing. Mm-hmm. When, you know, say you get invited for an interview and then it's just totally twisted into something completely different. Yeah. And I guess you just lose trust in that. Yeah. You know, there's very few journalists I mean, I went through about 10 years where I didn't talk to any journalists. Mm. And I now talk to both newspapers who've ran stories, and I now have very good relationships with both newspapers. But when I do stories now, again, I like to be in control. Yeah. So I tend to choose the journalists I want to talk to. Mm-hmm. You're lucky. Yeah, the spotlight was just shining on me there. But like, do you find like is it like an agenda thing? Is it just that they know that the name is clickable? I suppose they list as endless on why someone would do that.
It is. I mean,
do you find sometimes it's like a personal attack?
There was one massive story, and I did actually jump on a plane and I left the country because it was horrendous and it wasn't true. Mm-hmm. And the journalist who put that story together went out there to attack me. Mm-hmm. You know, it was nothing, only an attack. Mm-hmm. And that could have ruined it. Well, I think it did. I think it did affect my career for a few years. Mm-hmm. But on the same hand, a lot of other people have had their careers totally wrecked by stories like that. Mm-hmm. And it could have happened to me, but I keep reinventing myself and I keep coming back. So.
And how it must be, I mean, such willpower to the next day, a new idea together and get yourself, you know, mm-hmm. back on the ladder as such, like, because most people would just, as you say, leave and just not come back.
Leave and not come back, mm-hmm. or do something worse. I mean, I remember standing on a motorway bridge in Lisburn thinking, do I jump off that bridge? And that thought crossed my mind for a day. That's how bad the story was, and how alone and everything that I thought, you know. But you know what gets me back? The thing that always gets me back is the people who have listened and the people who watch the show. Those people are the people who always pull me back. I can go out there and do a live gig and walk on stage and just the feedback, that's what keeps me going.
because there is that loyal listenership or
There is
viewership, you know.
There is.
Because and you know, that person pressing print on stories. Do they ever think of the effects? It's hard to know. You know, do they think of? It's their job at the end of the day, you know. But
it's their job to do it. But there are times when journalists have gone too far, and we've seen it. We've seen it with Caroline Flack. You know, but we've seen it with people like that. We've seen, you know, pressures on Amy Winehouse, Nikki Graham, who I knew from Big Brother. You know, there's all the pressures there of the media and stories being written about them and stuff. So,
yeah.
But again, I think that with all the culture and stuff at the minute, you have to be very careful everywhere now. So I think journalists. Well, are there journalists anymore? All I see is people regurgitating press releases. There's nobody going out to really sniff out a story anymore. We don't have the classic days of the people like Jim McDowell and people like that running around getting stories. You know, those days of people actually going out and getting a story are few and far between now.
The amount of papers I see regurgitating, you know, TikTok videos that have been there or social media videos, they take the video and they just make a story out of it, and they're not. But do you think these days it's harder in that way to be in kind of your position where there is a camera on every street and everyone will know everything now? You know?
Exactly. That's the scary part. And somebody can post your video online and you can go viral without even knowing it. Yeah. You know, that's the scary part. Mm-hmm. And the things people can do with AI and stuff now as well, they can manipulate everything. You know, so
which is just crazy.
Yeah.
What about some of the things you're doing now then? So, I mean, you mentioned kind of bringing back that chat show with Jerry and so on with TV now. Do you find there's a wee bit of what's the word I'm looking for? A bit of life back into media in this country now. You know, where it's, you know, I guess I went through a bit of a patch where it was just the same old, but now with, say, technology or with TikTok, with COVID, I'm trying to get to the question where do you think COVID changed things now, where you're doing your show and you're interviewing people across the world and
big time. I mean, you saw some of the guests I would never have had on if it hadn't been for COVID.
Yeah.
If Zoom hadn't been invented.
Yeah.
And now you can basically have access to anybody. I mean, that's the amazing thing. But I am getting fed up with the Zoom thing.
Yeah.
If I want to talk to a big star, I'd rather fly to London now and just sit and do the interview.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, technology now is amazing and it means we can do it. But there is still a need out there for those chat shows. There's still a need out there for nostalgia. There seems to be a group of people over the age of 50 who are forgotten about, as if they're not out there, as if they're not watching television, and they are. They're watching Jerry's show, they're watching my show. They're, you know, so there still is an audience out there that need to be catered for.
Yeah, because we do all think about, oh, well, you can just watch it on YouTube or TikTok.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I get that the generation's still there. And I almost think the generation will almost always be there, because there's people even in my generation who don't care about social media and they're not on social media.
Yeah.
So like painting everyone with the same brush, saying that's the way we need to go down.
Yeah. People still want to be entertained at the end of the day. And they'll be entertained in any way they can, whether it be on TikTok, whether it be on TV, whatever. But I just think there is an audience out there that are being forgotten about. And we've talked about the glory days of local TV here. Those days are never coming back again. The saddest thing ever was when UTV closed its doors. You know, UTV are basically a news gathering ITV company now as well. The localness is gone. And there's less BBC programs now. There's less, but I think there's still an appetite and a need out there for local content.
So I mean, if you were starting out these days, how would you go about things differently? What would you do differently? You know,
I got a call the other day from a media teacher in some school in Lisbon or whatever. I've got a student here who would love to be on TV and radio. Is there any advice you can give? And I'm going, why would anybody want to do it now? That's the thing, you know. There's no fun in it now. As you know, if you want to go and do television news, you've got to present the news, you've got to write the news, you've got to film the news, you've got to edit the news, you've got to do the job of something like 20 people would have done way back in the day. You know, you're under so much more pressure now, And because things move so fast, you're under pressure to get the stories out quicker. Your stories have to be shorter now. People's attention spans are at 90 seconds. If you go over that, it's why would you want to do it?
How do you put on a brave face in the industry, right? And say some days you can just be fed up with what's going on. And do you not feel like sometimes people are against you?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Right.
At the minute, I'm feeling. I used to not care because I had so much there, and I was at a certain level where I didn't need to care. And now that I'm older, I'm feeling the old thing. I was told that I was not relevant, and I'm coming 45.
And even what does that sentence even mean? You're not relevant. Like, what
does that mean?
What is relevant?
I am relevant. I can still look at my figures on socials. I can still go out. I'm filling the Grand Opera House on the 18th of June with Actionability, a show that we do every year, which is amazing. I am still pulling an audience. I can still do that. I'll be 45 on the 27th of March.
Okay.
And I will have birthday Botox. Yeah, I'm refusing to get old. I don't care who says that's vain or that's whatever. I'm not getting old.
I would know more people in your position and those thoughts nowadays than 20, 30 years ago. It's just a thing now. It's just
I was thrown out of a bar last year.
You were thrown out of a bar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Myself, and I have never told this on microphone, but myself and the playwright author Rosemary Jenkinson, we were doing her book launch. And after the book launch, I said to her, let's go and have a wee nightcap somewhere, as you do. And I said, there's the closest bar to us. Let's go in to the closest bar. So we went into the bar and we ordered a couple of beers. And we had our beers. And I went back to order some more. And they said, no, we can't serve you anymore. And the bar is empty. There's like me and her and two other people in the bar. And they said, no, we can't serve you anymore. And I said, why not? And they said, because it's student night. And I looked around and I went, the bar's empty. And they went, no, it's student night. And I went, and? Well, it's obvious. You're not students. So they eventually, after fighting with the management, asking for the manager to come down, he was about 12, came down to see us. We were allowed one more drink before being told, no, we weren't students, so it's time to go. So what I want to do, I want to go and I want to hire that bar, right? And I am going to do it. I'm going to hire that bar and I'm going to put on a night for people over 50. And I'm going to put on Terry Hooley DJing and people like that and show that these people can still party more than students running around with their bottles of blue WKD and stuff. Yep.
So what is coming up in the kind of near future? For you, obviously, you're still going to carry on the TV show, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean,
is it moving?
We're now. What's happened at the minute? Jerry's basically filling my slot at the minute for 10 weeks. So Jerry's got about 2 weeks left. We're moving onto Sky 588. Jerry's on there already. Mine will be moving on to Sky 588. So we're coming back for a new series in April, and we've signed a deal with Sky that'll keep us on the air until March next year. And that will be 21 years of the champion. At the end of that 21 years, am I going to continue? I don't know. I might decide to do I want to do serious documentaries. I want to do out and about stuff. I think after 21 years of sitting in that chair, I think it's time to.
But you can't have touched in documentaries in a way. There was a show on BBC ages ago, wasn't there? This is well before COVID. About moving house.
Oh, The Simple Life. I mean, that again, things just happened to me. We got a call one day, saying they're doing this series. It was during COVID, and it was the same team who made Wanted Down Under, and obviously they couldn't make it because of COVID, so they had to come up with a new idea. So they said, me and Pauline, do you want to go and spend a week on the North Coast and look at houses? Yeah. We did. I loved every minute of it. Yeah. Loved it. So we did that. Documentary stuff, I did the Miami Show Band documentary, which is well over 10 years now, so I'd love to do something again like that. There is a new cookery show coming. We've had the green light for that. And I think we're going to be launching all the details of that within the next couple of weeks. But I will be working with Stephen Jeffers, who's a top chef, and I've always wanted to do something with Stevens, so that's coming soon. There's a few other exciting things in the pipeline. Something happened yesterday, which we're about 90% confirmed that it's going to happen. And when I announce what it is, you will all go, yeah, it was just a matter of time before he did that. It had to happen. It had to happen at some stage.
Okay. That's an interesting one. Okay. Right.
You will do it. But I think when you find out what exactly it is, everybody will be my new best friend.
Okay.
Because they'll all want in on it.
Yeah.
That's coming soon. I want to mention the 18th of June in the Grand Opera House, because I do it every year. We do a show with Actionability Belfast, and we sell out every year. The script is amazing. I get to work with some of the most amazing people. They've all got disabilities of some sort, but they're a dream to work with. They spend the whole year writing and producing the show. Joe McNally does the script, he does the sound, he does the music, he does everything for it. He writes me some of the funniest lines ever. So again, if you want to support a very worthwhile charity, Actionability Belfast, come and join us at the Opera House on the 18th of June, because it is a show unlike nothing you've seen before. It's a great night out.
Yeah. And the final question. So will people be convinced about your future projects that are coming out? I'm sure that'll be a yes.
The one that I mentioned to you there, that they're going to say, yeah, that was bound to happen. So, yeah, they will be convinced about it. I can't believe it's taken me so long to actually do this.
It's so intriguing now that you said that. It's just, a million thoughts are going through my head. But no, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. Is this your first podcast as a guest?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, it is. There you go.
There, if you can mark that on the calendar.
You got the exclusive.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, and good luck with all the projects.
Thank you.